the Team Azon Pro, the Ryan Stevenson marketing website and also the Down Comforter Guide website are currently down at the moment. Those are actually two of the sites that have been causing issues lately. To be more specific, they've been under attack by a hacker, and somebody thought it would be a good idea to turn those sites into their own personal email spam server. So working on dealing with getting all that sorted out. And currently those sites are shut down. However, they will be coming back soon. And on top of that, if you happen to have any links on ryanstevensonmarketing.com, a lot of those links are commonly bonus courses and things of that nature that I offer with various promotions. There are also a few other things like webinar series and things like that that I've done. A lot of times the recordings will go on that website. So if you have any URLs for ryanstevensonmarketing.com that you try to use over the next number of days and that website is still down for you, what you can do is change the domain name from ryanstevensonmarketing.com to supertargeting.net, supertargeting.net. So any ryanstevensonmarketing.com addresses will now work correctly if you switch those domain names. And that's just temporary, just until I get that site back up and running again. I didn't want anyone to have to wait to access any training materials and things of that nature that might be on that site that they were trying to get to. So a little bit of a temporary fix to hold things over until I can get those sites back up and running again. Hey George, good to see you there. Those are good questions. How do I back up my websites? Do I recommend any plugins for backing up your websites? Both are excellent questions. I do cover the exact manual process in the first lesson of the Techie Masterclass and the cPanel training lesson. As far as plugins, there are a lot. Yeah, Tina here recommends backup WordPress plugin. She said it works good. I personally don't use any particular plugins to do my backups. I do them all through either the control panel or even above that on my dedicated server at least. Through control panel though, the thing with WordPress, if you do any kind of a manual backup, or even if you are depending on some kind of a plugin, I think it's good to know how it's actually done instead of just, you know, clicking out a button on a plugin and trusting that it's taking care of it for you. What you really need backed up on a WordPress website to be able to restore it somewhere else. Ultimately, it's the database is what's really important. There are sometimes files within the actual website itself. Let's see, I could pull up a site here. Give me just one moment and I can point a couple of things out. Okay. Seeing as how somebody has already taken this side out, I will use this one as my guinea pig. The database, as I was mentioning before, is the most important thing. You obviously have your normal backup stuff through Control Panel and Backup Wizard, where you can do a backup of your entire home directory or downloading a database backup, something of that nature. However, I'm not a huge fan of actually using this area. It does work in some cases. On this particular website that I'm on, it's on a dedicated server, but on its own little standalone hosting account. And so there aren't other domains that are shared here. But if you're using a shared hosting account, yes, exactly, like what you're talking about, George. You were trying the Control Panel backup on HostGator, and it won't back up properly. That usually ends up being because you have multiple sites running there. So what I do is I will go into phpMyAdmin. Over here on the left, you have each of your different databases. This information schema, you don't have to worry about this. For each of the other ones, each database should represent a specific website that you have installed on that hosting account. So if I had 10 different sites all on one shared account, I might have 10 databases listed here, plus the information schema, possibly. So what you're really interested in is getting a backup of this entire database. And each individual one can then be used to restore a very large portion of that website. And I'll talk about what the remaining pieces are in just a few minutes here. So once you find the database you want to back up, you click on it so it's opened like you see here. So you see a listing of all the different tables, and then you can just go over here to export. Typically the quick options that are already set on there should work fine for you. The only exception to that is maybe a really large website that had an enormous amount of content on it. You might have to do a custom export and try to split it up, but it gets into a lot of different complicated options. You can restrict the length of things like that. Ultimately though, for most WordPress sites, for things that I think anyone watching this video would likely be doing, the quick method should work just fine. That's typically what I am able to do on most of my sites. So you are downloading, when you click on go here, you're downloading a file and it's named after your database. You can see the name right here, and then it has the .sql as the ending. So you simply save this file. Then you can come back in and import these files. You browse, you find the file, and you upload it, and it can restore that entire database for you. You can even come into a site where, you know, say you set it up on a brand new hosting account or something like that. You create your database through your control panel here, and then you go into an empty database and go into import, and you import that file, and it'll load up everything. In addition to the database, you also have files on the actual website itself. The files on the actual website itself are going to be in your public HTML directory. Everything in this directory, if you back up the entire public HTML directory and then restore it on another website, and also restore that database, that's going to be your entire site. So it's a two-part thing. You have the files, and then you have the database. Now, the reason why I said that the database is the most important thing is because in a large majority of situations, there is really not a lot of stuff in all of these files that you couldn't restore yourself if you needed to. For example, a large chunk of the files that are here are the basic WordPress files, the core WordPress files that get updated or installed when you install WordPress. So you can set up a brand new domain name or a brand new hosting account, for example, and install WordPress from scratch on that account, and then install your plugins and themes manually over from scratch, and then restore your database, and you would end up with very, very close to what you started with. The couple of minor differences there would be in your WP content folder, for example, there is an uploads folder. If you uploaded any content, such as images, through that Add Media button inside of WordPress, that's all going to end up in this uploads folder. So this is kind of the main piece that really isn't found in the database. Your whole site would get restored, but all of those image links or other links to that uploaded content on your site would end up being broken if you didn't have this one particular folder. So with that said, as long as you had your uploads folder and you had a backup of your database, you can restore an entire WordPress website. There may be a couple of, again, very minor exceptions, like Google files that you may have uploaded for the Google Webmaster Tools or Search Console. But things like that, you can always manually replace them, whereas the uploads and then all the content on your site itself that's found in the database, those are really what I consider the irreplaceable pieces. And so as long as I have those two parts of it, then I'm good to go. If I'm doing some kind of major virus cleanup, like things that have been happening on two particular sites lately, this one actually being one of them, what I have done to ensure that everything is clear is I've done just that. I've gone in to WP Content and Uploads, and I've downloaded all of these folders. I've checked through them by hand to make sure there's nothing there that I didn't upload myself, because sometimes they do slip in a PHP file into one of your upload folders or something like that. So you want to make sure that you're not retaining anything that is a bad file, obviously. And then beyond that, I take the content out of my database and I restore that. And then everything else gets installed again from scratch. So that way, any WordPress files or plugin or theme files that they may have infected, or other things, other files, period, that they may have added onto the site, none of that stuff stays if I wipe it all out and start over from scratch, basically. George is asking, how do I back up the public HTML file? You can do that in a couple of different ways, or at least you should be able to. One way is through the backup. I don't know if you've had any success downloading home directory backup or not. You don't really want to do the full website backup. Those are actually very hard to restore. But these individual ones, the home directory backup, a lot of times will give you what you're looking for there. If you're on a shared server, maybe this backup page just isn't giving you that part that you're looking for. I use FTP to create backups. I'll just log in to the account using an FTP software. I use Core FTP. Yes, Core FTP is what it's called. And I just transfer, if need be, the entire public HTML directory. That does take a while, though. If you can get this backup made, it is a lot easier to do. The other option is through this file manager, if the control panel thing isn't working. At least I know it didn't used to be like this, but if you're using the more modern cPanel file manager like what you see on my screen, you should be able to, let's see, yeah, here we go. You get to like your root directory, so you can see the public HTML folder or whatever folder it is that you want to be backing up. And you should just be able to go up here and click on compress. I usually go for the gzipped tar archive for restoring on a website here. And so I can just click here and it'll compress it all, and then I can just download it, just in one file. It's pretty easy to do that way, at least for a large number of files, and without having to go through FTP or without worrying about the cPanel backup system even. And even this way, if you wanted to, let's say, for example, you just wanted to get your uploads, you could come here and just select your upload folder and get all those zipped up into a single file, which you could then download. And then these can also be restored in the same manner, but using this extract button instead. So it's probably one of the easiest and fastest ways, honestly, to restore a whole directories or multiple directories worth of files. Right, Tina. As far as when I was talking before about the files here and having to reinstall everything from scratch, and if you were to just take the uploads folder, then yeah, you would need to reinstall WordPress and then reinstall your free themes and plugins and also any paid themes. If you did have customizations done to your site, I guess it would really just depend on how those customizations were done. Hopefully they were done using the WordPress system and not actually editing the WordPress or the base plugin or theme files. Because doing it the right way, then it should keep all of those edits actually in your database. If you had a lot of custom coding and stuff like that, though, then I would say it could be very important to make sure your public HTML is backed up. Oh, you're quite welcome, George. Let's see, Tina, I was reading through your question here. Your question labeled as number 2, this relates to my holiday niche training on Mother's Day, how do I suggest handling niche research Amazon products to go after for that particular holiday? Is it similar to how I approach Valentine's and Christmas in my video? You ask because you're doing a holiday site and you feel like you need to make really good choices because there are so many possibilities. Okay, I got what you're saying. As far as approaching that holiday in terms of any holiday for that matter, I do recommend approaching a lot of them in a fairly similar manner. You have your obvious content that is centered around that holiday, but then you would also have some content that's centered around the niche itself, the types of products, or even uses for those types of products, for example. A lot of those kinds of things can persist after the holidays, even if people aren't using a keyword phrase specifically having to do with your actual holiday. If they're just searching for your niche, they may still be looking for gift ideas for birthdays. Obviously is the most common one. Those things happen all throughout the year. So I think as long as you are selecting products that do have a very specific appeal to that actual holiday season, but they also could extend beyond that and still be excellent gift ideas for a specific demographic throughout the year too. I think those are among the best choices because they do give you a little more longevity with the site in terms of it being more consistent throughout the year and not just being really popular for a short period of time and then essentially dying off for the rest of the year. You're also asking number 3 on a product for a holiday site. If I had, say, a perfume that I wrote about for Valentine's Day, would I write a whole new article for a Mother's Day site, like a separate website? Or the same site? I got you. That's just covering a number of different holidays. Um, I wouldn't use the same article. I would find a way to have something different to write. How is it appealing for that particular holiday? If everything about it would be identical, if you feel like you essentially need to say the same exact thing for both holidays, you may be able to do something more like what I've done with my IKEA Down Comforter page, where I combine a number of different subjects all into one page because they share a common subject. That way you don't have to repeat the same thing on multiple pages of your site. I do realize on one hand that it could potentially take away from what you're trying to go for with having a holiday site, where I would assume you would want to have, different pages that are covering each of the holidays then. Well, if you are tailoring the copy to the holiday, like what you're saying, then that should be okay. You know, the content then should be different enough to where you could have separate pages in that situation. The big part is just you don't want to have two different pages on your site that essentially contain the same content. That's specifically what Google refers to as being duplicate content. It's not actually taking content from other websites and reusing it, but it's reusing the same content again on multiple pages of your own site. So I don't remember precisely where I left off, Tina, but the basic thing that I wanted to get across with that is just make sure that you're not using the same content on multiple pages. It then would be okay. Let's see, you're asking if you send an internal link from, say, a product page to separate holidays, would that create duplicate listing in Google? It shouldn't, as long as your content is separate enough. Like, for example, let's say you have a site kind of like downcomforterguide.com where you have one section of the site that is nothing but product pages. So then you would have individual pages in that section of your site, each one of them covering a product. In general, they might briefly mention a couple, specific holidays or occasions or people that they're grateful for or something like that in the content. But ultimately, you could leave that as more of a general product review page and then have separate pages of your site that would be your informational pages. And each of those pages could then cover a specific holiday for a very specific demographic, even, for example, different uses and things like that. So then all of those informational pages where maybe you have a page about, what to get a mother-in-law for Mother's Day or something like that. To where you're not just targeting Mother's Day as a whole, you're targeting a very specific demographic within Mother's Day. Then you could have mention in that Mother's Day article about a couple of particular products that might be a good fit for them, and you simply then link up to those product pages that you have on your website. So doing it that way, you should be able to capitalize on potentially keyword traffic off of the products themselves and also off of the different keywords that you'd be going after that are holiday related. The only stipulation I can really think of as far as doing something like that is just make sure there's some kind of a focus to the site beyond just holidays in general. I would recommend, like, is it a holiday site for guys that are trying to find gifts for different friends and family or things of that nature, or it could be women trying to find gifts for, and you could even get more specific than that, husbands looking for wives, wives looking for husbands, gifts. You could even get into more specific demographics, senior citizens perhaps, even targeting male or female. The only reason I recommend narrowing down some kind of a focus, if you don't have a focus of a specific product or a specific type of product, then I feel like it's important, if you're making a holiday site, to have some kind of a focus with the holidays, just so your site doesn't have to have content that is in an enormous amount to be able to get some decent authority going on. If you think about all the different holidays that are out there, and you also think about, say, all the different topics of content that you could possibly come up with, if you were to make an exhaustive list of every single holiday that exists, and then you also make a list of every single topic that you could come up with to go along with every single one of those holidays, if you can't come anywhere close to hitting that amount of content for whatever your website topic is centered around, then I would recommend to narrow it, simply because you do want to be covering as many different topics within what your website is about as possible to be able to get the better Google rankings. I find by narrowing the focus, then there's a lesser number of total possible topics that you could cover relating to that subject. And then therefore you have simply less content that you have to produce to really be competitive against any other website that might exist having to do with that topic. Right, exactly, Tina. Something like that at least gives you some kind of focus, where you're going for something like Mother's Day gifts from a daughter, or Mother's Day gifts for grandmas. You know, that's a good example. You're getting very specific, and your total possible audience shrinks considerably. If you ever do any kind of paid advertising with a website like that too, it makes it so much easier to just narrow down your demographics. Like if you're only interested in Mother's Day gifts from daughters, then obviously you can not target males whatsoever and just go after daughters, and maybe even, you know, women between a certain age group that you would expect to still have mothers to, you know, be able to buy Mother's Day gifts for. So you could weed out a large chunk of the population that way, and that's the whole basic idea behind it. As far as which class would be best in Team Azon Pro, it would really kind of depend on maybe how large of a site you intend on making. Even though it's the oldest Amazon training class that's on Team Azon Pro, I still have the utmost confidence in the Azon Home Study course, or Azon Masterclass 1, it's also called. That is based on one of my longest running strategies that I've used to not just build Amazon sites, but other kinds of sites as well that I want to get search rankings for. The only drawback, really, maybe two drawbacks that I could say with that particular series, is that you have to have a little bit of technical, I hesitate to say technical knowledge, more like just simply being able to handle some code, or to look in some basic HTML coding and to realize what there is code and what is normal text, so you could just simply edit the text that is there. However, I just in the last couple of days actually did create code generators to go along with the Azon Home Study course. I have not linked those up in the Team Azon Pro website though, now that I think about it, and making myself a note to do so right now actually. So with those code generators, it takes away pretty much 99% of the need for being comfortable with coding and things of that nature. With that said though, the other major drawback is that the approach that I use in the Azon Home Study course is to create 100% WordPress pages. And this then requires you to link everything up manually, which is what those code generators are for. That's how you create the menu systems like what you've seen on the homepage of downcomforterguide.com and also on the category pages of that website. So all that part has to be created manually by using the code generators. So in that regard, it can be confusing for some people. For others, it's not an issue. So if that is a major hang-up for you, or maybe you get to that part in the series and you realize this is going to be difficult for you to do, the technique that I teach in the Azon 30-day challenge, the most recent full Amazon site building course that I've done, that course was designed to be essentially the opposite of the Azon Home Study course in that technical manual linking aspect that I just got done talking about. So in the Azon 30-day challenge, a lot of the research aspects are still the same. You can honestly use strategies from either of those two courses in terms of the research and the planning phases. You could use those interchangeably. But then where it really veers off is just how the site is put together. So the actual site construction lessons of the Azon 30-day challenge, it avoids technical stuff at every turn. There, I don't believe, are any kind of code generators or anything like that. I tried to depend completely on built-in WordPress systems for accomplishing all those types of things, or using some kind of freely available plugin or something like that to accomplish it. So with the 30-day challenge, I use a combination of pages and posts, and I use the WordPress post and category system to then link everything up for me. So when I add new content into the site, I don't have to go back into my category pages and add in a new link to the new page or post that I just created. That on a website where you wanted to create a ton of content, if you're talking 50, 100 pages, or if it's something you're just going to maybe revisit on a regular basis, make a couple of new postings every month, for example, you might not want to have to constantly be doing the manual linking and editing of the category pages. You might just want to be able to create a new post and click that publish button and be done with it and not have to worry about connecting that into your website. So it's all about how your content gets connected into the site, and also the technical requirements that go into that connection are two of the biggest differences between the Azon Home Study course being the more technical one and the Azon 30-day challenge being the one that strays away from the technical stuff. Okay, George, I was taking a look at your question. That is a really excellent question, actually. And I have dealt with that so many times myself in the past. If you have a shared web hosting account where you have multiple WordPress sites all installed on the same account, to where you do have a big listing of databases over here on the left and not just the one obvious one. George was asking, how do you check to find out which database is for which website? Because, you know, they're usually just numbered, like WordPress 12 or something like that. So to find out what site it is, the easiest way that I have found out is to simply go in here to the database itself and look at the listing of all the tables. Unless you've installed a bunch of plugins, you won't see this many tables either. The one you're looking for is WP options, and usually the very first row there in WP options will tell you what the domain name is for the website. Now, I mean, there are some other ways that you could potentially go about it if you knew anything about it in terms of like what the user was. You know, you do have this normal listing here, but if it's just something that's been set up by default, you again may just have users that are just WordPress and a number, and databases that are just WordPress and a number. So the WP options table is the most fail-safe way to go, in my opinion, and I commonly use that myself on shared hosting accounts if I need to make a backup and make sure I know the exact site that it's going to, so I can label it or organize it or something. So that's a good question, George. Thank you for that, by the way. Oh, you're quite welcome. Glad to help. That's a good question, Tina. I'll try to summarize the question here, and then I will answer that for you and everybody else. Keyword research you were asking about. Do I think it is bad if a person creates a website based on really good Amazon products in their niche, like going to the bestseller list and just making a website strictly based off of what the best sellers are in your category, I assume you're referring to, and without doing, okay, great, and without doing any keyword research to go along with it? Instead, you're checking, number one, does it sell good? Number two, are the ratings good? And number three, you're preferring the best sellers, obviously. You also go on to say keyword research can really bog one down, but you do not know without the research, can you get into a competitive product instead of a lower competition one? I think that's a good question, because I do think that a lot of people probably feel the same way. I don't like the keyword research stuff either. You know, sitting there for hours punching keywords in, trying to find the right stuff, you know, can honestly end up giving me quite a headache after doing it for a while. So, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the actual work part of it, but, you know, the end results of it can make the rest of the work I'm going to do a little more worthwhile or meaningful. Yeah, just by simply knowing that there is some kind of keyword traffic centered around it, and to have a general idea of the competition. I don't really worry about going too deep into checking stuff like backlinks. I will generally look at the keyword traffic on, say, the Google Keyword Planner, and then I might go over to Google and do one of the simple all-in title searches, where you then have your keyword here. So there's going to give you all the pages that are indexed by Google that use that keyword phrase somewhere in the title. So you can see every single page here is going to have the word keyword somewhere in the title of the page. It's just a general competition gauge, but it's fairly quick and painless to do. So I use those two fairly fast things to get a general idea. I try not to go much deeper than that because it does get very time consuming and can really bog you down. As far as whether it's okay to blindly select some products off of Amazon or not, though, and especially if you're just focusing on whether the products are good, if it's selling, the ratings, whether they're bestsellers, the things that you were mentioning. If you are gauging Amazon products in those ways, then you're going to be making a good choice. In some ways, the other information that you could find, keyword traffic, or even the competition for it, might not really matter in the grand scheme of things, but you also have to think about, what more might there be to your website than just those product pages. If you were going to make a site that was nothing but product review pages, and you just chose them, say, off of the bestseller list, off of Amazon, made sure they had good ratings and stuff, and then, that was 100% your entire website right there. I would say that it could work in some cases, but it would really be more of a hit and miss kind of thing. You could end up putting together a 50-page website or something in a case like that, and it just might be an overwhelming amount of competition for all the keywords that are related to those products that your site could potentially be ranking for. So my whole point of doing at least some kind of minimal keyword research to verify that I'm not going to waste my time with an entire website, I want to know there's traffic there, first of all. That's the most important thing. Second of all is the competition. I say second because you don't need really low competition on everything that you target, but you do want to find that there are at least a couple of angles on your site that do have really low competition to give you the best possible chance that the website you build is going to end up succeeding. Otherwise, I find with more the blind selection method that you could just simply end up creating a site that never ends up getting any traffic. Now, if you were doing a site more like what I teach, where it's kind of a combination of informational pages and product pages, it would be okay as long as the products were a good fit for your niche. Blindly select away. Choose stuff off the bestseller list. That's fine. But then when you're doing research for the topics for your informational pages, do some keyword research on that stuff. Make sure that at least some of those informational topics that you're going to go after, that they will have lower competition and decent traffic levels. Otherwise, then you're blindly selecting on everything. But at least if something, and what's more likely to be the lower competition keywords anyways, the informational stuff, at least you know you should have traffic in some way, form, or fashion. So that's why I recommend at least doing some kind of research somewhere along the way, just so you know that you do have a low competition angle available to you. Yeah, in relation to like the holiday site, if you had good products that you wanted to use, um, because they were a bestseller, and because they are also were, say, a perfect fit for the approach that you want to take, then sure, don't worry about keyword research on those. Don't worry about competition research. The only exception to that would maybe be do a quick run of keyword research to find out how do people actually search for that product. You don't really want to use the title of the product off of the Amazon website. You want to find something different from that title that is still that same product that people actually do search for. You'll have a better chance of getting rankings with stuff like that. The titles, keywords that are actually in the Amazon product pages, those keywords are naturally going to have much more competition because there are a lot of automated software titles out there that just spit out pages with those titles on them. So I try to avoid that kind of stuff. But yeah, then your content pages, your informational stuff, you can link that up to your product pages. So like with your holiday site, you have an informational page about a specific holiday, or whatever that angle is that you're trying to take with it, a certain person buying for another specific type of person, for example, or looking for a certain kind of gift for that holiday, all those different keywords relating to that being your informational content, then yeah, you can just link those things up to the relevant products that you would want people to buy, and funnel your traffic along from the content pages to the product pages. You can still get traffic directly to your product pages. It is better when you can get it directly to the product pages, instead of having to funnel it through an informational page, because there is that extra step that they have to take. So you need more traffic to informational pages than you would to product pages to get essentially the same amount of clicks or the same amount of sales on Amazon. So in that regard, it does take a little more effort going the informational page route. But there are a lot of niches that are just so jam-packed with competition that anything related to those product keyword phrases, the names and the brands and models and everything, or even the general type of product that it is, a lot of that stuff is so saturated that sometimes the only way into the niche is through those informational phrases that a lot of marketers ignore because there is that extra step involved. But as long as you help connect the dots, you're not only connecting the dots, obviously, but you're actually building some trust in that person and not just instantly trying to sell to them. Anytime you see something that is just blatantly pushing sales upon you, yeah, it gets some people, it works some of the time, but it also drives away a lot of people. So I try to take more of the kinder route, the catch more flies with honey route. And it sounds like what you've done, Tina, with your keyword research on not really doing it on the products, but for some of the related content At a minimum, I think that that is okay. Um, just try to identify at least a couple of different ways that people should be able to easily get into your site. And you can always, put that stuff out there and wait a couple of weeks or a couple of months even to see how it turns out. And, if need be, go back in and make some changes, do some additional research to figure out, you know, different keyword phrases that you might be able to go after. The biggest thing I would recommend to do, though, if you're not going to do keyword research on your products, is change the title. Still call it the same thing, but you want a different title from what's on the Amazon website for that product for sure. And also I would recommend trying not to focus too much on Amazon store websites, essentially. They do work, but they do kind of seem to be slowly getting squeezed out of the marketplace from what I've seen. At least it's not that you can't have kind of like an Amazon store part of your website. It seems like the sites that are nothing but that, though, have been going downhill over the years. Amazon has even been more picky about those types of sites even being a part of their network. So another reason why throwing that informational stuff in there, I think, is beneficial all around, really. Yeah, like Fresh Store Builder, that's creating an Amazon store. If you were to use Fresh Store Builder in the default easy way, the way that you can, say, create an entire website with it within a matter of a couple of minutes, that's what you want to avoid. Too many people are doing that kind of stuff. There's no value in those kinds of websites when they're created in that manner. So it's not that the software is bad, it's just that some people choose to take the easy way out, or maybe they just don't know the right way to do it, so they just follow along with what the software will allow them to do and don't think about, how it may affect things. So it's okay to use Fresh Store Builder as long as you build your site correctly, do more than just the Amazon store part of it, in my opinion. And obviously doing things like customizing your product pages is becoming much more important in Amazon's eyes in recent years, but I've been begging people for more years than that to not take that route, because it's, I've been saying that it just doesn't have a long-term future in it, really. If your site has value, if you can remove all the advertisements from it and somebody would still have a reason to visit your website, then it's got a shot in today's marketplace, and will have an even better shot as time goes by, because the quality sites are coming more in, and the junk is slowly being weeded out as technology improves to be able to find that stuff, using computers, automation, basically, to weed out the bad stuff. And they're getting there. It's taken some time, but yeah, that's great. Using a blog and then a store if and when you complete it. I think that's a great way to go with websites. Before you even put the store on there, you'd probably have traffic and potentially even Google rankings on a site like that. And I like to take that route too. A lot of times I'll even build my websites that I'm going to put Amazon ads on, and they're heavy on the informational content anyways. I'll still usually wait till the last minute to throw my ads on there. If I can see some traffic coming in from Google before I've put the first Amazon ad on a site, that's usually a really good sign. Trying to figure out how to get them off your root directory. Oh, as they're not live and your blog is a folder. You do not know how to fix that. One of the parts of it, well, you don't need this actually. You can do it through, you should be able to do it through WordPress itself, where you can set the domain of your site or the address of your site. If you just move that back to being the base domain, it should change that reference that I was showing in the WP options table, where it would basically change this from being /blog to just being the base domain name. After then a change like that was saved, then the site wouldn't actually be accessible anymore because it wouldn't be in that proper location. So then what you would have to do is to move everything. You'd have to go into public HTML. Let's say this is your blog folder or something like that that had WordPress all in it. You come in here, you select everything, all the files, all the folders, and you can move them. So you would just go up one level to, this is where you would want to be moving it to your public HTML folder. However, if you have a bunch of stuff in here already, I'd probably copy all that and maybe put it in its own folder before you then move WordPress back over to here. But you can definitely change the URL of your blog and remove the store part from the base part of the domain. And then you could even run that store from a subdirectory later, like it could be in the store directory, for example.